Welcome to the Pewtercast. Today is May 2nd, 2017, and this is episode 34, A Badass Football Team. I'm Brent Allen, one of your hosts.
And I'm Ren Dax, the other host.
Ren, today is a very, very special show, and you want to know why?
I do.
This is our official, drum roll please. Drum roll. Drum roll.
I'm trying.
There we go. Today is our official 1-year anniversary show of the Pewtercast. Woo-hoo!
1 year for you.
1 year for me. A couple months for you.
Couple months for me.
But no,
it's my 24th month birthday.
Yay! This is it was this week last year when the Pewtercast debuted. In fact, it was this very same episode. It was the post-draft recap show that we have going on that we'll be doing today. Actually, a lot of today is the skeleton of it is very similar to the one we did last year because it worked so well. And you know, I got to tell you, back then it was literally me, a microphone, and a recorder, and that was it. Now we've kind of grown up a little bit over the year. You know, we've got a full studio set up here. I've got mics and hook arms and soundboards and multiple computers going on, and everything's sounding pretty good. In some cases, multiple computers. Let's put it that way. We've added some new gear, added a new co-host, the very fun Ren Dax.
That's me.
That is you. It's just been a fun year, and this community has grown. It's been super, super fun. So, Ren, just out of curiosity, I know you've only been the co-host for a few months, but you've been listening for a little bit longer than that. What's been one of your favorite moments so far here with the Pewtercast?
Yeah, I think I've been listening pretty much from show 1. I might have caught you show 2 and went back and listened to show 1.
Yeah.
I probably the first, where it was, I guess it wasn't my first official hosting, but the second time I was on, when we did the Pewtercast Awards.
Yeah.
The Mini Lombardis. I thought that was a fun show. Cause I didn't know any of the results, and I was up for a category, so I was hoping, but, it was fun to debate back and forth and know people were winning and getting certificates and little trophies. I thought was cool. So that one was probably the most fun, and I liked the one where we brought in the podcasters from the other 3 teams when we were reviewing the NFC South after free agency. I thought that was cool too.
Yeah, that was fun. It's you certainly helped make that happen, getting us connected with some of those other guys. I don't know if it would have gone off like that had you not been here. So, thank you. You see what you're adding to the show, Ren? You're adding people, which is great.
People.
So I think for me it was actually shortly after we'd launched, and there'd been maybe a couple hundred downloads over the course of several weeks. Nothing huge, but to me, like, it was big. Like 250 people listened to the show in one day. Like, that's amazing. And then like 500 people over 2 weeks. Like, that's even better.
I'm gonna be a rock star.
I know. I was, and that's what I was thinking. I was like, man, they're going to call me from One Buck and have me come in and run their whole media gig out there, and this is going to be awesome. And, it's everything was just cloud nine to me then, right? And then this was, I guess, in June or so, the news of Austin Severian Jenkins getting kicked out of practice broke. And I hopped on the mic and I did like just a short little 20-minute bonus episode. And, man, that thing spiked at like 400 downloads overnight. Like, that was, oh my God, amazing.
That number will never be beat.
I was just, oh, that's amazing. And, and it almost got up to like 800 by the end of the week. And man, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have billboards in Raymond James, and everybody in that stadium is going to start listening to this podcast. And, it was just such a cool moment to see like, hey, I think this thing might actually work. Like, people might actually listen to this thing. That's kind of cool. Honestly, this community of listeners here, the listener base here at the Pewtercast has really grown, honestly, so large that if we were to only get 400 downloads in the first 24 hours of an episode release, that would kind of be a little disappointing. We'd be like, oh, that's it.
That's it. Ren, what did you do? How did you mess up the show, Ren?
Exactly. What is going on? You're fired. But that's not to brag. That's just to say that for you guys, the listening audience, you guys have grown. You've told your friends. You've left iTunes reviews. You've done all that kind of stuff that has helped this show grow. So thank you to you guys. You've really kept this going and kept everything trending up and to the right. And I got to tell you, I thought, Ren, that once we hit the off season, that the numbers and everything for this show would just tank, because we scaled back to like an every other week type schedule and various things. But man, the numbers continue to grow like week after week, which has just been amazing. And so, this has been so fun, and I can't wait to see what comes up here in year 2.
Yeah, it's exciting. Everyone, like you said, like everyone that does podcasts and other podcasters you talk about that do sports, especially football or Buccaneers, everyone says that it drops during the off season because there's not really a lot to talk about. But I think it's the Jameis effect. He's got everyone so excited for Buccaneers football, what the future's going to be. And
sure.
Like not like next year or this year. It's, people are like, oh, like this is going to be good for 10 years, 15 years. So, everyone's dusting off their jerseys and going out and buying new ones. And, there's a lot of pride in the Buccaneer fandom right now. There
absolutely is. I'm sure our friends over at the Pewter Report and other people who do this for a living would say Jameis is good for business. So, well, guys, this would normally be the point of the show where we kind of check in on iTunes reviews or emails or fan tweets that may have caught our attention. But, this offseason we've been talking about changes that are coming to the Pewtercast. And today we're bringing one of those changes right now. And that's interacting with our fellow Bucs fans. That's been one of our favorite things to do here at the Pewtercast. Usually we do that at this part in the intro, but sometimes we're just trying to get to the main episode like so fast and get through the intro that we tend to gloss over it, or maybe we just bypass it altogether. So Ren and I kind of talked it over, and we decided that we're going to move that portion to the final segment of the show so that we can give more time to you guys, our listeners, and we can interact with your emails and your tweets and stuff just a little bit more so that we can kind of continue to grow the community that we have here. And also that should lessen the length of the intro and get us right into the show several minutes earlier. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the show. For today's show, we're going to be taking a look at each of the picks that the Buccaneers made in the draft this past weekend. And then for our top 3, Ren and I will be discussing our top 3 players whose jobs may be in jeopardy after this draft. And to close out the show, we'll be moving on to that new segment that we talked about where we'll be taking a look at what our fellow fans are saying. All of that and more is coming your way on today's episode. We'll be right back. You're listening to episode 34. So, Ren, out of curiosity, what do you think about when you think Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Oh, great roster, young team on the rise, franchise quarterback, great staff almost from top to bottom, GM, head coach, defensive coordinators, all the assistants. But I think Dirk Cutter has a better way to describe us.
A badass football team. How's that?
Well, Ren, as I've looked at and I've kind of listened and seen what people are saying about the Bucs and their draft this last weekend and just kind of the draft overall, people really, by and large, seem to be rather impressed with this draft. So before we get to each individual pick, why don't we kind of do that? Let's start with our overall thoughts on the draft. So your thoughts on the draft, good sir, just sort of overall.
I thought it was a really good draft. It's kind of funny because when it was over and before I had some time to think on it, I felt like it was probably my least favorite Jason Light draft. But I think that every single player is actually going to make the roster this year. So that's something he's never had. So I thought that was a little strange. So the more as time goes by and I read about these guys and figure out, in my head where I think they're going to fit on the roster and schemes and things, it gets happier and happier. B plus, A minus in that range.
Wow. Ren, I think part of what separates you from me is that you do all of your homework on these guys generally before the draft. Like, you study these guys, you know who they are, you've got your own draft board set out. Whereas like me, on the other hand, like I kind of wait to see who we pick and then I do my homework because it's a few less players when I do it that way.
Yeah, that seems a lot smarter and efficient.
Well, I do what I can. But so like for the last bunch of months on this show and other shows, like whenever you or Riley or someone else would throw out a name here or there, I'd just be sitting there going like, really? Get out of here. He's pretty good.
I totally agree.
That's amazing. I had the same thought last night while eating chicken. Like, so I don't know. I just kind of go with what you guys say. But like on draft night, like they holler out a name and I'm like, yeah, go player, go. Well, good pick, Cutter, Light, guys. But I got to tell you, over these last few days when it's been my turn to do all the homework, and I've been watching these clips and tape on these guys, and I've started to see why people are so excited and what the big deal is about an O.J. Howard falling to number 19 that we get to pick him up. I've been doing that, and I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, like you, I could see each and every single one of these guys making the roster and gaining a significant, if not starting job on this roster and being an impact player. Admittedly, I think some are probably going to be more of an impact than others, but that's okay. Not everybody can be like the point of the spear, like you've got to have other people in that. And as Coach Cutter said, when he was asked about certain of these guys playing in one of his press conferences, he kind of brought it all back to earth and he said, now, wait a minute. These guys all still have to make the team, which I thought was really sobering. But, I thought it was really sobering because none of these guys are on the team. Certainly like O.J. Howard is going to be there. And but when you look at these guys, I think they all, like you, Ren, they could all possibly really make the roster. I think they stand a really good shot of that. So that's kind of my overall thought on the draft. Like, this was a damn good draft as I'm looking at these guys. And now, Ren, I have a question that I want to ask you when we get to the end of this segment, but I want to save it. So remind me, don't let us get out of this segment without me asking you that question kind of as we go through all the players. So
I'm writing it down right now.
There you go. All right. Well, why don't we get into it? For our first draft pick.
With the 19th pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select O.J. Howard.
There you go.
Tight end, Alabama.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, Ren. So O.J. Howard was our first-round pick. Your thoughts on this pick, good sir?
Pretty much on par with everybody else's. Top 10 player, top 5 player. I don't think there was a draft pundit out there that had him out of the top 10. And due to the value that the NFL sees the tight end position, he fell down to us. Him and Jamal Adams, the safety, were probably the two safest picks in the draft as far as high upside and actually a very high floor as well. You could tell that Jason Light and Dirk Cutter were ecstatic. Like even Jason Light's press conference after the first round where he talked about him, and he was still on cloud 9. And it took him about half the press conference where he finally was like, yeah, he still has to come out here and compete, and he got, like you were saying, like Cutter said, these guys have to make the team. But it took him about halfway through the press conference, and you almost see like the light come on. That he realized that he was just gushing over this guy too much. He had to sort of like reel it back in.
Right.
But I said it during our live draft.
I think giddy would be the best word to describe that particular moment for Jason Light.
Yeah, he said that Dirk Cutter's not a hugger, but he gave him the biggest embrace they ever gotten from him after after they hung up the phone with Howard. So yeah, it couldn't have worked out any better. During the live draft call-in show, I said the only other guy that I possibly wanted besides Howard was Corey Davis. So yeah, it worked out perfectly for us, the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, to talk about that, talking about the hug that he said that he got. I don't know if you watched it. I'm sure you did. But that hug, for the longest hug or the biggest hug he ever got from Jason or from Dirk Cutter, it was like your typical like bro hug. Like it was like a hey, bump, and then he was done. Like that.
Yeah,
was
it was nothing special.
It was nothing special, but apparently for Dirk, that was pretty special. But I got to tell you, over these last couple of days, I've watched a lot of film on this guy, and I really get why Light and Cutter and so many people were elated with this pick. And I once again, Ren, I have to apologize to you, especially because for anyone who might have listened to.
Wait! I see here on Twitter, Rick Stroud says Brent is a spoiler.
It's true, he is. So yeah, for anyone who might not know, we actually did a live episode of the first round of the draft, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about not spoiling the draft and how TV likes to spoil the pick and who's coming out. And we're like, oh, let's not do that. And sure enough, we had just finished talking about that, and right as we got to that pick, yours truly may have spoiled something for Ren, who he was like, why'd you spoil that for me? You suck. You're horrible.
May have.
I did.
May have.
I didn't
mean
to, though.
You read Rick Stroud's tweet like it was like it was a question or something.
Well, no. Okay, so here's the thing. It's like, this is what I compared it to. This was like, so you're 5 minutes left in the game. You're down by 2 touchdowns, and the other team just goes ahead and scores another touchdown. At that point, you go, well, the game's over. Well, no, the game's not over. It's just hyperbole, right? Like it's metaphoric. It's in that realm of, well, no, the game's not over. They still could potentially come back, but they're probably not going to. Like, I thought it was that of just the other team did not pick O.J. Howard, so I thought Rick Stroud was just going, oh, well, that's it. The Bucs are drafting O.J. Howard. But you're right. Rick Stroud doesn't do stuff like that. Like, he actually reports the news. He doesn't comment on stuff. So, that was actually him saying, no, they actually just picked O.J. Howard. So, my apologies. If you guys would like to listen to that, you can go back into the feed and pull out. It was a bonus content episode, but it was our live call-in show for the draft. I believe in the show notes there's actually a time code that will tell you where you can jump to and listen to that. But
it says where Brent breaks Ren's heart.
He was yes. My apologies.
All
of that to say, I get why he blew everyone else out of the water. I think this was an A+ pick. I mean, this guy can play. You know what I'm saying? And not only was this a position that we needed, this was a position that Cutter loves. And I don't think I ever realized how much Coach Cutter really loves the tight end position until like watching his press conference and watching him make that phone call and all that. And here's what I realized. We, as a Bucs fan base, have never seen what Coach Cutter can really do on offense when he has 2 really good tight ends, at least not in Tampa Bay. We have yet to see that. In his couple of seasons here, we've not seen him do – he's just not had the tight ends to do that with. And so I'm really excited because now he's got O.J. Howard. He's got Cam Brate, who led the league in touchdowns last year. Cam Brate's a very fine tight end. It was actually kind of funny watching the pundits and stuff talk about O.J. Howard, and sometimes they would miss Cam Brate, and somebody would go, oh, they've also got this guy Cam Brate who kind of was pretty good himself last year as well. So yeah, I think this was a great pick. I'm super excited. Like everyone else is saying, I think we got a top 10 player all the way down at number 19, and that's about as good of a pick as you're going to get at 19. But the big thing that I want to talk about is about Jason Light and his patience. And he let it come to him. Like, he didn't get antsy. He didn't go work out some silly trade to go up and get him anyway, which, of course, even if he did that, we probably wouldn't even be calling it a silly trade, right? We'd be lauding him for knowing when to go get Howard and not letting him slip away. But Jason Light was able to stay the course. He went 18 picks and kind of held his breath each time. And he didn't bow out or trade down because certainly he had the people that were willing to trade with him. He stuck to his guns. He stayed in. And he cashed out with O.J. Howard. And this probably had to have been the fastest card to be turned in at any point in that night. where they were just running to the thing to give that to him. So those are really my thoughts. And one last thought, because I don't know why this kind of got under my skin a little bit, but as I was watching, a lot of the media were saying, "Oh, why did he pass on Dalvin Cook?" Trying to explain why'd they pass on Dalvin Cook, why'd they pass on a running back and go with O.J. Howard. And I was going, that's such a poor wording, because when you're picking the better player, that's not passing on the other player, and that's nothing against Dalvin Cook, but you don't pass on $100,000 prize by taking the $1 million prize. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just two different players, and O.J. Howard was the better player in that situation. So I don't think it was necessarily passing on Dalvin Cook, nothing against the guy, or passing on a running back. I think they were just taking the better player.
Yeah, agree, totally. During our live draft call-in show, it got to the point where I was just begging for someone to pick Dalvin Cook so we could quit talking about him. He's been the emphasis of Bucs fans and most Buck fans wanting Dalvin for months. There's media guys that have been keep writing articles about why we need Dalvin and why Dalvin's the best and all whatnot and all the other things. So people coming out and saying that the Bucs passed on Dalvin Cook for O.J. Howard, like you said, that's ridiculous. That's like saying. And once again, no offense to Dalvin Cook, he could turn out to be a great player, but it's like saying I'm passing on the Kia so I can get in the Mercedes.
Right.
Which,
like, by the way, if you go to the game show and the prize is a brand new Kia, you're pretty ecstatic. Like, that's not a bad prize,
right? Until
you see the Mercedes behind the other curtain, and you can make that one.
You could have had that one. I'll take that one.
Right. So. I'm pretty sure we just called Dalvin Cook a Kia. Well, with that, Ren, why don't we move on to round 2 and our second pick?
With the 50th pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Justin Evans, defensive back, Texas A&M.
So this one came as a surprise to me. Justin Evans. There are a lot of safeties were linked to the Bucs. I was projecting a wide receiver in the second round. I thought we would go safety, maybe first, possibly second. I was thinking third, but there was a run on safeties at the top of the round. That's when Mays went. That's when Baker went. So the Bucs had a first round grade on Justin Evans. Texas A&M, big hitter. Has laid, you go watch his highlight films, he will lay the lumber, but he has missed 37 tackles in the past 2 years, which is an astonishing number. He's been working on wrapping up. His coaches got on him after his 2 years ago, and he said he worked on it this year for his college game, but he still missed a lot of tackles. So I think that'll get coached out of him. But there's something that he likes, and this is the first step in the draft where you kind of see the defense. They're going for a certain type of player on defense to toughen up the middle for the Buccaneers. Chris Baker, a big 330-pound defensive tackle. Now they've got a downhill safety, big hitter, come in, fill the holes, and can drop some of the bigger running backs in the league. Not afraid to tackle. When he does stick his nose in there, he's gonna take someone's head off. So he also has really good cover skills, from my understand. So it was a need pick. I think this was probably the only spot in the draft where Jason Light and the Bucs, I don't say they reached for a player, but they probably could have got a more productive player as a wide receiver or running back here, but they knew they needed safety. They pretty much told everyone that they needed a safety. They're going to get a safety. And from where the pick was to value, and they liked Evans, so they went after and they got him.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And Ren, you and I had I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, when we did our show with Riley, where we kind of picked like what position we would be picking in each round of the draft. I think you and I had both projected tight end and safety in our first 2 rounds. I think we just had them flip-flopped. Is that right?
No. You might have. No, I went cornerback.
Yeah.
Round 1, and I went wide receiver round 2.
Okay, so not all. Well, I had tight end first, and then I had safety second. But with that, I think it's because, and I know I personally felt that these were kind of the two biggest glaring holes on our team. And I know some people may say it's a running back, but I got to tell you, listening to everything coming out of One Buck, and not just from the Buccaneers brass, but also from the media and people who are around, it doesn't seem that that running back is as high as a need as some fans may say. That with as good as Doug's looking, certainly they're really loving Jacquizz and Peyton and Charles Sims. But in filling out these two needs coming early, man, it was great. And I got to tell you, I think my first thought when I heard this pick was Evans. Oh my God, can we please get some first initials on jerseys this year? Please. Because not only do we have the same names of players, but now they're coming from the same schools. But I got to tell you, let's hope that that's not where these similarities end, because Justin Evans is coming from the same school Mike Evans came out of. And, man, I'm super excited to see this guy get on the field. And as you say, he may not be a fully complete safety, but I think he's going to be going in there, and he's going to be competing hardcore with Tandy and Chris Conti, who may or may not make the roster. I'm not sure. J.J. Wilcox. And even some people said Ryan Smith, but we know that Light has said that Ryan Smith is moving back to cornerback. He's not playing safety. So despite what other people have said, probably not Ryan Smith. But he's going to be competing with those guys to go in and take the starting spot on the roster. And if he doesn't start the season as that, I'd be very surprised if he didn't end the season as a starting safety. But I got to tell you, this makes this position to me the most interesting camp battle to watch. This would be different if he was a super complete safety and was amazing, because then, of course, he would be starting. But it seems like he might actually kind of fit a little bit, but maybe even be a little bit better than some of the guys that we currently have. So I want to see how that works, because he's still a rookie. So, it's a give and take. But, I want to see more out of this guy. I want to see how he separates himself from everyone else in that room. But I'm excited to watch this. I'm excited to see this one develop.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to be a good battle to watch in camp. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, let's take a look at pick number 3.
God bless. With the 84th pick in the 2017 draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers proudly select Chris Godwin, wide receiver, Penn State.
Local kid here from Penn State.
All right. Well, Chris Godwin, wide receiver. Ren, thoughts on this pick?
I love this pick. I thought this was a high round 2 guy. After the big 3, which we know were Williams, Davis, and John Ross, they all kind of jumbled together with like Juju Smith-Schuster and Carlos Henderson and Chris Godwin. You might want to throw Tywin Taylor in there. There was like these group of 4 or 5 guys, Zay Jones as well, that are all kind of the same type of player. So it kind of matters where they were on the board. But all you have to do is go in and put Godwin's tape for the Rose Bowl where he played USC. He's not one of these Buccaneers guys. He's like 6 foot, 6'1", not really blazing speed, but he knows how to use his body to box out the cornerback or the safety. He's going to fight for the contested ball. He's just a player. He's just a guy that he's aggressive to go after the ball. And when he gets it, he's also going to try to get as many extra yards as possible. So of all those jumbled guys, Godwin was kind of my guy. And I just can't believe that they stood pat in the 3rd round and he fell to him. So once again, another great value pick for the Buccaneers, 3 in a row, and also fills a big need. So yeah, couldn't be happier.
Yeah, Coach Cutter and Jason Light have talked a lot about adding speed through the draft this year, and it's not just O.J. Howard, but I also think Chris Godwin is going to be a part of that with where they look to bring him. But I got to tell you, overall, I thought this was a typical pick from Jason Light. And it's that it goes back to the thing we've talked about before. Several people have talked about it this offseason, where you sign a vet in free agency and then you draft a rookie in the same spot. And that's a lot of what this is. Of course, we signed Deshaun Jackson. So now we draft Chris Godwin at a wide receiver. And I saw several people on Twitter were like, why did we draft a wide receiver? We just signed Djax. We're good. And my answer to that was 2 reasons.
You really saw that?
Yeah, a few times. I saw it several times. Did you not?
I wasn't really watching Twitter, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was in the chat room using my phone in the chat room.
There you go. Well, yeah, so I saw that. Well, and I even saw it like a couple days after in some of the Facebook groups for Buccaneer fans. But to me, and my answer was the same, and I'm going to say it right now, this pick was about 2 things: depth and the future. I think Deshaun Jackson, for as amazing and as exciting as we are about having Deshaun Jackson on the team, let's face it, he's not going to be around forever. This is not a rookie. He's not going to be here for the next 10 years, 10, 15 years, right? He'll be here for a handful of years. We'll enjoy him while he's here, but he's really only here, through the tail end of his career. It seems maybe not even tail, maybe the back quarter anyway of his career. So to build in depth, because I got to tell you, this team really likes Adam Humphries. And I think they're going to continue to utilize Adam Humphries in the slot. And so I don't know that this pick is as much about competition with Humphries, because he's certainly not going to overtake Mike Evans or Deshaun Jackson. But I don't think this is about as much competition with Humphries as it is about insurance against battling that injury bug. But, because that's what happens, right? Like, people get injured. We saw that happen last year. Like, by the time we got to week 4, we were signing guys off the street because we didn't have the depth. And I think that's what this is about. Now, let's assume for a moment, let's just say that everyone stays healthy this year. Mike Evans doesn't get hurt. Djax doesn't get hurt. Adam Humphries doesn't get hurt. Let's assume that they all stay healthy and Godwin still makes this team. What I see happening here, and what I almost would hope would happen, is a good, solid rotation with Godwin as a part of that rotation, keeping the guys fresh through the whole game. Do you remember last year, Mike Evans, he's our star player. He's out on the field, 3-4 downs in every series, like right in a row, But how many times would you see him by the time he gets to the end of the game and he's just worn out, right? He's sucking wind by the end of the game. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, he used to tap his helmet. Yeah.
So I got to come out. So
he'll play 5 or 6 plays, but if they keep picking up first downs, he's going to be tapping his helmet. He's going to go sit, and like you said,
right,
and goes.
He's got to take a breath, right? So, and what I would like to see is don't let him get to the 5 or 6 plays. Like, rotate him in a little bit more and just keep the frequency of that going. So I could see Godwin really being good for that frequency to keep Mike Evans fresh throughout the whole game, particularly at the end of the game where we really need him to step up, as well as Djax, and this guy becomes a guy who can grow into the number 2 spot as time catches up with Deshaun Jackson, which will be sooner rather than later. So for me, I like this pick. I like this pick as high as it is. And again, good value for this pick.
Agreed.
With the 107th pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Kendall Beckwith, linebacker, LSU.
Yeah, when word came out that the Bucs had traded up at the end of day 2, last pick of the 3rd round, everyone was thinking running back. I was thinking running back. I couldn't think of any player that they'd move up for. They already got their tight end, possibly a cornerback. But why would you move up from the 4th to the 3rd to get a cornerback? Because if you want a cornerback that bad, you had your chance to get him. So the pick of Kendall Beckwith was extremely surprising to a lot of people. But the background is, and this also goes towards what I was saying earlier about getting stronger up the middle. This guy would have been a 2nd-round pick if he wouldn't have blown his ACL. He only played like 10 games, still led the team in tackles. His production's gone up. He's a linebacker, downhill linebacker, lots of tackles for losses, and he's like 250, a little bit lighter, like 243, 250, which means he'll be playing like the Darryl Smith row, the Sam linebacker, and he's big enough to set the edge because in some defenses he's going to have to be playing directly over the tight end. The blocking tight end. So he has to be able to be big enough and strong enough to be able to handle the tight end and turn the back inside and funnel him inside for Quan and Levante to get the tackle. So they're really excited about it. Buck fans weren't because they knew we needed a running back still. They thought this was the spot for it. and then drafting a linebacker, which didn't seem like a position of need because you've got, two guys who can make the Pro Bowl next year. And this player is only going to be playing, something like 40% of the time on the field. But, for the value, once again, for what they had on the draft board, it was excellent value. And kind of Jason Licht kind of warned us. He said it in the welcome back presser at $1. He said sometimes you will draft a guy and you'll think like, wow, you already have like 2 Pro Bowlers there. And then he said, but down the road, he's going to be really important and he's going to be you're basically going to be glad he's there. And that was like not the first thing I thought of. The first thing I thought of was like, what the hell are you doing? There's running backs on the board. But for value and where they were at, obviously they didn't think he'd slide down to them in the 4th. So they went up and grabbed him. Once again, getting tougher up the middle, starting with Justin Evans and now Kendall Beckwith. So we'll see on this. I believe in Jason Licht. I think he's going to be a good player. I just don't know if his ACL is going to be healed up enough, before training camp, during training camp, where he's actually going to get on the field and get enough reps to play. He might actually get IR'd for the whole season, kind of like Devontae Bond did last year. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you make that point, and you talk about Devontae Bond and Darius Glanton. All of these, those are 2 guys, and then certainly some of these guys that we'll be talking about in a future episode of the undrafted free agents that have come in, that'll all be competing for this Sam linebacker spot, right? And Kendall Beckwith certainly is going to be in the middle of that, provided his ACL can get healed up and he can get back on the field. I hadn't thought about the idea that he might actually be on IR for the rest of the year, but you're absolutely right. That notwithstanding, I still say we could actually be looking at our new starting Sam linebacker over Darius Glanton and Devontae Bond. Now, to be honest, I've not seen a whole lot of tape on those 2 guys, even though they've already been on the team for at least a year, if not more. I'm not sure when Darius Glanton actually joined the Bucs. But what I've seen on tape of Kendall Beckwith, I like him. I like his attitude. He's a big hitter. He's got some versatility. He can move around. And you can't underestimate the endorsement of this guy by Quan Alexander. And this isn't just an endorsement where, Quan Alexander comes out and he's talking to the media and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm excited for my old teammate. I really like him. He's a good guy. Like, it's not that kind of a thing. Like, Jason Licht talked about, he went to Quan and said, what do you know of this guy? And behind closed doors or just between the 2 of them, Quan was able to give him an honest, ringing endorsement, which played no small part in Jason Licht trading up, using his 4th round pick here and a future, I think it was 6th rounder for next year, to go up and get this guy, and getting info on him. And Quan vouched for this guy, which was enough for Licht to go up, to trade up to go get him. It's enough for me. And after the top 4 picks in this draft, I truly think that I could see all 4 making this team. And unless Kendall Beckwith goes on IR, I think at least 3 of these guys could be starters for the Bucs.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I guess it's a blessing in disguise that he tore or hurt or blew out his ACL. Darius Glanton, I've said this before on previous podcasts, but his plays that he's on the field compared to the number of tackles he makes, his ratio is outstanding. Plus, he also ended up being the backup emergency long snapper. And we just don't know about Levante Bond. I mean, I liked his tape at Oklahoma, but he had injury problems staying on the field there. His JUCO numbers are crazy, but I mean, a lot of JUCO players are. And once he gets to the Bucs, he got hurt again, and and they placed him on IR for the whole year, which I think was more of a courtesy, kind of like they redshirted him because it was just a hamstring. You're probably going to miss 6 weeks, absolute max, with a hamstring, but they're like, oh, hamstring, IR, because, they want him to give him a year in the classroom and he traveled with the team and he's put all the work in. So he's done everything but, get to practice and play. So we'll see how that goes. That's what kind of makes it surprising. But I think it was just one of those things where in the 3rd round, and you could say they took him in the 4th, and they gave up a 6th round this year, their 6th round pick basically to swap their 3rd and 4th, and then threw a 6th round in there to go get this guy just because he was so athletic and and they know his future is going to be bright, and they thought he was a good football player. So time will tell, but, once again, it seems that the more you don't know about a player that drafts, the better they turn out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I got to tell you, this, to me, becomes the number 3 most interesting camp battle to watch on Hard Knocks, which we will be talking about on our brand new show, Talking Knocks, coming later this summer. And with that, on to pick number 5.
With the 162nd pick of the 2017 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick Jeremy McNicholson, running back, Boise State. Woo! Go Bucs! Go Bucs!
This was another surprise. Not a surprise that they took a running back, but the running back that they took. A lot of people were upset, and this kind of fell back on Kendall Beckwith as well. Since they moved up from the 4th to the 3rd to get him, so they didn't have a pick of the 4th, and now they had to wait till the 5th, and Perrine had just gone off the board, and Brian Hill had just gone off the board. Connor from Pitt, James Conner, had just gone off the board. And so by the time I got around to McNichols, so many backs had been linked to the Buccaneers. We thought 3rd round, 4th round, the latest, absolute latest. So no one really knew who this McNichols kid was. But it turns out, and I don't think he really likes the comparison, but it turns out he's sort of Doug Martin clone. Went to the same college, they're the same height, they're close to the same weight, sort of have the same running style. But he's a 3-down back. Doug can pick up the blitz, but this kid's supposed to be able to do it better, and his hands are supposed to be great. He had over 100 catches in college for over 1,000 yards, 11 TDs. He's played wide receiver for 4 years, albeit 3 of them in high school. But his first year at Boise State, he played wide receiver, so he knows what he's doing, a true 3-down back. And I was looking at Matt Miller's final big board, had all the players ranked, no matter what, by position, just overall best. And he had McNichols over Hill. He had McNichols over Perrine. He had McNichols over Mack. He had McNichols over somebody else. Besides the top 4, which was Mixon, McCaffrey, Fournette, and Cook. Yeah. I think there was 2 more backs he only had raked over this guy. So he might be a bigger surprise to Buck fans than we think. Plus, there's all that inside information. Well, I don't say inside information, but there's big connection to him. He's known Doug Martin. He's met Doug Martin. Of course, Dirk Cutter coached at Boise State. Players that he coached are now on the Boise State staff. So it's sort of like a homegrown connection there. And it might have been one of those wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hey, look, this guy's really good. If you get a chance to grab him and he's there for you when you're looking for that that position, go ahead and take him. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with this guy. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing on Twitter up at Boise State, they used to call him the McWeapon for McNichols. McWeapon.
He sounds like a menu item at McDonald's. Yeah, yes, I'd like number 1 with the side of McWeapon, please. Special sauce Good on one. That thing. Special sauce.
2-point conversion, please.
Yeah, McWeapon. There you go. Well, okay, but before I get into my thoughts on him, I just kind of want to point this out since we've been in a little era of bragging over these last couple of episodes around here, Ren. In episode 33 with Riley, where it's called Drafting Riley Allman, you and I put out to Riley kind of what we thought how the Bucs would go via position in each round, how they would pick. And I happen to predict that our first 5 picks would be a tight end, a safety, a wide receiver, and then I said in the 4th round we'd have 2 picks there, and we'd take a linebacker and a running back. I'm just throwing that out there. Our first 5 picks in the draft were tight end, safety, wide receiver, and then running back and a linebacker, though not exactly both in the 4th round. Just throwing that out there. Just want to say that.
Okay. I'm just going to throw out there that you didn't pick tight end. We made you pick tight end. You just said best player available, and you said trade down to get a tight end.
I did.
Look, You lucked into that. You had no idea. You were thinking of Joku all the way. You had no idea O.J. Howard's there. And since we needed these positions in Pacific order, whoever hit the first one was the one who's going to go down the line. Now, having said that, it is impressive. But you lucked into the tight end.
I'll go ahead and say we still got best player available at 19 anyway. But
yes,
you're right.
Did.
You are very right. It was there. This is called beginner's luck, really, is what that is. There's no rhyme or reason to that. Now, let's talk about this pick. Listen, guys, regardless of what people are saying or what people might be thinking, and actually, I've not really seen a whole lot of this out there. This pick was not an indictment against Doug Martin or any of our other guys, because we all hear what they're saying. They love their entire running back stable. Doug Martin, Charles Sims, Jacquizz Rodgers, Peyton Barber. They love those guys. We hear that. I think this pick was about the same thing that the Godwin pick was about, depth and future. Only the difference is we're not going to keep as many running backs on our roster as we will wide receivers. So for this guy to take the spot of one of those four, which, by the way, we tend to only keep three, so we're already one heavy. To beat out one of those four for a roster spot, or really two of those four, we should say, he's really going to have to shine. Now, here's the thing, Ren. Like you, I think he has probably the most potential of any of our draft picks to upset existing players on the roster. And I got to tell you this, if he doesn't make the 53-man roster and he doesn't get picked up by another team in that little in-between of when we would have to cut him, we will see him back on the practice squad. And when someone gets injured, and I say when because we know that the injury bug can hit. So when someone gets injured, he will be our next person that we call up. Depth and the future, that's what this pick is about. And I'll save my thoughts, more thoughts of that particular thing for the next segment. Not trying to give anything away. I'm just saying we might not be done with this discussion.
It's true. The Bucs carry four on the roster, but they only dress three for game day mostly. And that third running back is going to have to play special teams. And McNichols can. I think he's even mentioned in his conference call that he's willing to do that. McNichols, in my opinion, as of right now, McNichols is in front of Barber in the as far as the depth chart, which doesn't exist, but I think he's in the third spot. And simply because what I talked about earlier is be able to pass protect on third down. Barber struggled that when he first got here. He has improved, but that's been what's keeping him off the field a lot and why they had to go out and get a player like Jacquizz Rodgers when Doug Martin went down. And then when Charles Sims went down, that's why they had to go and get out an Antone Smith because they couldn't trust Barber on third down to pick up the blitzes and things like that. So as of right now, I think I'm giving McNichols more credit. He's going to make the team, I think, hands down. I could go out as far as saying that he will be starting week one of the season. Like, I think he's going to be that good. I think he might start over Quiz. Cutter might keep Quiz because he's more, familiar in his offense and stuff. But I think this kid's going to play a lot, and he's going to make a big contribution this year. So just wanted to say that.
I cannot disagree with you one single bit in anything that you just said there. All right, pick number 6. Let's go.
With the 223rd pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Stevie Consolatu, defensive tackle, USC. Woo!
So that is Big Stevie Tuikolovatu. Ren, your thoughts on Stevie T?
Stevie T, the third piece of getting stronger up the middle. When Mike Smith when he was a defensive coordinator in Jacksonville and the teams were going to the playoffs, he had 2 mammoth plus 300-pound defensive tackles that you could not move to stuff the run game up the middle. And now the Bucs have 3. They re-signed Silver Silgia, and then they picked up Chris Baker in free agency. Now they got Big Stevie T, Tui, I'm going to call him. Plus 330 pounds. Just a big, huge egg on little toothpick legs. But a very athletic dude, though. He actually returned a fumble 35 yards for a touchdown when he was at Utah. That's an great story. I just want to say this: how you've probably heard the story about how he spent 2 months in an SUV in a Suburban with his wife, and because he didn't want anybody to know or any of his teammates to know, and they call it in college, they call it the stipend. So basically, so you get into college housing and you get your meal card and all that kind of stuff. And then if you go and you listen to the phone interview that the Bucs media had with him the night he was drafted, it's really kind of a much different story. The team wasn't practicing, so he didn't know any of his teammates. He was waiting to be housing, but it's not like they slept out front of USC's campus in their Suburban. Like, they traveled all around Southern California. Right. They went and saw the sites, but instead of staying in hotels, they just slept in their Suburban. Like, they went down to Tijuana in Mexico for a while, so they bounced all around. So, and he said, we were trying to find places to work out. He said that was challenging. But yeah, I mean, it's because when you hear people on TV, tell it, it's like, oh, he moved down there and all he had was like the shirt on his back and he lived in his car with his wife and he's made something of himself. It's like, no, it's like they got down there. They're like, oh, well, we don't have a spot for you yet. And he looked at his wife, said, well, let's go, adventure Southern California for a couple months till, we got a place to live. And she went, yeah, sounds great. So still a really cool story, but it's not so rags to riches or pick you up by the bootstraps type of deal. It was more of like a family vacation for the two of them than it was not having a roof over their head type of deal.
Right. We just finished college. We have zero other responsibilities in life. Let's go do this kind of a thing.
Yes, exactly. And they just came back from their 2-year mission. When he left Utah, obviously it's a Mormon school, and you go and you do your two-year mission. And then when he came back, he still had a year left to play college. And they're like, and he got USC, and they said, yeah, come play for us. And, they just kind of rolled from there. And now he's a 7th-round draft pick for the Buccaneers. I think he's going to stick. Like I said, it's the third player like that they have now. And I'm excited to see what he can do. Like I said, he's just a big, huge egg, and you can't move him. You just can't move that guy.
So the very first note that I have down here about this guy is, how does this guy's story not touch your heart? And I'm pretty sure you just explained how his story does not touch your heart.
And here's why.
Because it turns out he was just gallivanting on the coast.
Yeah.
And, of course, it had to be a Suburban. A guy that big, Suburban's big enough. You lay down the seats, you just lay on it, and you're good to go. I may have done something like this with my girl, except I wound up going to the other side of the world. And I didn't have a girl at the time. So, but hey, listen, I met a girl over there. I really did. And boy, do you know how pissed her parents were when she still came home with a fat white guy. Just saying. Now, listen, this guy has some size that he is bringing to the inside. And you're absolutely right. They started from the back and they came up to the middle and then they came up front on the defense, getting bigger, getting thicker, getting stronger, getting faster all the way through. Now, this is a spot where I think he's going to compete with Silver for that roster spot. I'm just not sure if there's room for both of them on the 53-man roster, or even on the 48 that's going to go into a game. But we'll have to see. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Hopefully there is, because I like big guys. I like big guys in the middle. Mike Smith, our defensive coordinator, loves big guys in the middle that can plug major holes. This guy is a complete 180 from our last nose tackle in Akeem Spence that we had for the last couple of years, because Akeem was not that huge. Like, when you looked at him compared to some of the other guys, he really never seemed that huge. He could just he was small and quick and get up underneath you. So I'll be interested to see how this one works out. But, this is a guy that we also traded up to get. We essentially spent 2 7th-round picks on this guy. So that's got to kind of upgrade him to a 6th-round value, right? Which, by the way, in our episode 33 with Riley, I said that in the 6th round we would draft a defensive lineman. So I'm not sure if that really counts for or not. But Stevie Tui Kolavatu, Stevie T, 6th-round pick.
Big Steve.
All right, guys. Well, there we have it. That is our draft. Overall, Ren, I'm pretty stoked about this draft. I think it followed really what we've been saying this whole draft season, in that there's not really any major holes on the team that had to be filled in the draft, but there also wasn't a spot on the team that couldn't use an upgrade. So we had several spots on the team that got a big upgrade, some a little bit more literal than others. Man, I can't wait to see. And certainly when you look at what the whole weapons for Winston thing was about, and certainly as you look at this, if you notice, this is the first one that's really evenly split. It's 50-50, 50% offense, 50% defense coming in there. So bolstering up some pretty good different pieces there. And, there is one person, Ren, who I thought summed up the Bucs draft perfectly, and that's Colin Cowherd.
So let me just start with the draft component, okay? Let's start with who had the best draft. One team to me, and they're the only team that can say this, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the only team in the NFL that can say every single guy they drafted probably should have been or could have been off the board by the time they got the player. What does that tell you? It tells you they got great value. To get O.J. Howard at 19 is absurd. He was my, going into the draft, one guy that cannot bust. They got guys here. Chris Godwin in the third round as a wide receiver. He could start for a multitude of teams in this league. The last guy they picked, Stevie T from USC, will make an NFL roster. Only team in the league that can say that. Every player Tampa drafted, you could argue, should have been off the board. And I watched every one of their players drafted play.
All right, Ren, way up at the top of this segment, I said that there was a question I wanted to ask you. So here it is, before we get out of here. Remember a couple years ago when we got 4 starters out of the same draft? We got Jameis, Allie, Donovan, and Quan. That was like a stellar draft, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so here's my question. Is it possible that this draft will surpass that one? Like, is it possible this was the perfect draft for Jason Light and that all of these picks are going to make the team and contribute?
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. You got to think it's the best shot. Well, especially since, a few of the people after Quan aren't. I don't think anybody after Quan's on the team anymore.
Right.
And that kind of happened last year as well. No, everyone's still on the team last year except for Vitale. So this is like an only time will tell thing. I think it has the best chance, but I would have thought the same thing last year because I thought Vitale was going to be a shoo-in. I had no idea he couldn't block at all. I thought he was kind of like a perfect fit. So, there might be a surprise like that that pops up. But, yeah, last year, with like I was saying, back to last year, like Beninock might start in a year or two. Ryan Smith might actually start nickel corner this year.
Right.
So Aguayo, if he wins out or if he doesn't, that's still 4 starters. I don't know if you're going to call it. It's very hard nowadays to call people starters because like there's a nickel corner, but he's not going to start the game more than likely. But he plays more than the actual starter, than the slam linebacker. And then you have your defensive ends that are like run stoppers, and you have defensive ends that are pass rushers. So you can't really call Noah Spence starter. But yeah, if you look at it and everything pans out the way you want it, which I'm sure you think about that every draft. Yeah, it could, like, we said it a couple times. This could be the first draft in the Jason Light era that every player makes a team, which is pretty amazing since he has flipped the roster and has aces in places like up and down this whole thing. So, yeah, like you look at it that way, it could be his best draft.
I think it could be. And as you say, only time will tell. Well, Pewtercast fans, now is the time we'd like to know your thoughts on our thoughts. What'd you think of the draft? Well, you can let us know by shooting us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com or find us in the Twittersphere at thepewtercast, or as it relates to this particular group of young men, at Talking Knocks, which is our new show that is coming later this summer, that'll be dissecting the Bucs as they are on the Hard Knocks television show, where every single one of these guys are going to be featured. You can also find us on Facebook.com/thepewtercast. And coming up next, it's time for our top 3. So stay tuned.
How does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in the Caribbean by providence, impoverished and squalor, grow up to be a hero and a scholar?
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Right now, for you, the Pewtercast fans, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This summer, I'm reading the book Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow. This is the book off of which Lin-Manuel Miranda has based his hit Broadway musical, Hamilton. In the book, Chernow tells us the engaging story of a relatively unknown founding father who was key to just about every important event in the founding of the United States of America. And by the way, he was someone who made friends and enemies at just about every single turn. It's not hard to understand why Miranda was inspired to use hip-hop as the art form to convey Hamilton's story to the stage. To download Alexander Hamilton or any one of Audible's 180,000 titles that you can choose from, just go to audibletrial.com/thepewtercast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/thepewtercast for your free audio book.
See if you can spot him. Another immigrant coming up from the bottom. His enemies destroyed his rep. America forgot him. We fought with him. Me, I died for him. Me, I trusted him. Me, I loved him. And me, I'm the damn fool that shot him. There's a million things I haven't done. Just in a way. What's your name, man? Alexander Hamilton.
Welcome back to the Pewtercast. You're listening to episode 34.
A badass football team.
For today's top three, we thought we'd revisit the very first top three that we ever did on this show and kind of update it with some of today's players. So today we're going to be taking a look at our top three players who, after the draft, probably should be worried for their job. So, Ren, man, I'll toss this one to you first. What criteria, any special criteria maybe that you used, and what is your number three pick?
My criteria was losing starting job or possibly not making the team because of the draft and the free agency. Number three, pretty obvious, first round draft choice, the dream pick, O.J. Howard. So that is going to make Luke Stocker extremely expendable. Not only does he get injured a lot and it's hard to stay on the field, he doesn't have the speed to get down the field, doesn't have the speed, athleticism to get any separation. Excellent blocker, but with Howard, he can do both. So what I'm thinking is Howard's going to move into Brate's spot, and Brate's going to bump back and move into Luke Stocker's spot. And if Luke Stocker's not starting, do they like players, undrafted free agents like Tevin Westbrook, or is Alan Cross going to beat him out? He has been in the league about 10 years, and like I said, he just can't stay healthy. So he might not only lose his starting job, he might do both. He might lose his roster spot altogether. So for number three, Luke Stocker, tight end.
Yeah, that's a good pick, and not someone that I had on my list anywhere. But if I was thinking along those lines, he would definitely be an honorable mention for me. But as you say that, I mean, if you bump everybody back, if Brate goes to kind of that number two spot, of course O.J. Howard in the number one, does that put Luke Stocker back kind of in that Brandon Myers type role? Luke Stocker for the last bunch of years has kind of been a little untouchable in our tight end room. Like, other people could kind of come and go, but Luke Stocker is going to be the guy who's here to stay. But maybe not anymore, because I think you make a good point. Alan Cross, Tevin Westbrook, some of those guys, getting some of the younger, newer blood. And as you mentioned, Luke Stocker's been around for about 10 years, which is a pretty long life for an NFL player. I think their average is about 2.5 for most players in the NFL. So, that's not a horrible career for Luke Stocker. But as you say, he's hard to keep healthy these days, and he might be a little bit more touchable than not these days. So good pick, man. Good pick.
Thanks.
For my criteria, I'm glad you brought up the guys who could lose their starting spot, because mine really, I kept it to people that I thought could actually be off the team, people that could be taking a walk and going home. So I'm glad that you have that as a criteria, because mine's a little bit more strict on the other side. And for me, my number three pick is actually coming off of our number four pick from this year with our linebacker. And for me, it's Devontae Bond, our player from last year, who spent the entirety of last year on IR. really for that job. You know, you mentioned earlier in our first segment that they kind of gave him IR as a gift to be around, to learn, to see what he's doing. But you remember we did that with Kenny Bell, right? And we saw how Kenny Bell worked out the next year. So, you know, Devontae Bond, now I'm not saying that he's not going to make this team. I'm just saying he was given a gift last year, and he's really going to have to show up and do something with it this year, I think, to stay on the team this year as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer and not get cut. And personally, between him and Adarius Glanton, I see Glanton staying, Glanton having more playing time, you know, having more time on the field in a uniform than Bond did. So for me, that makes number 3 Devontae Bond.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I had the Bond on my list. I wasn't going to name him as one of my top 3, and it's simply because I don't know anything about him. I haven't seen him play, and I haven't seen, you know, and he hasn't played in over a year. So he could come out and be gangbusters. Like he could be. I don't think so. I think he's probably not as good, but yeah, he could be the Kendall Beckwith of last year, whereas this guy like can't believe he's there and he fell to us, and you know. What's interesting is all the linebackers that they've taken in the draft and the ones they bring in for undrafted free agents are guys that have pass rushing ability and experience, and they get a ton of tackles for loss, TFLs. Mm-hmm. All these guys. Go look up. I know we're going to do the undrafted free agency episode next, so I don't want to like start getting into the people's names and stuff, but this is a type of linebacker, and I look at it now. And it's another thing that's really odd is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 linebackers on the roster right now. That includes all the UFDAs and, of course, the people that hung around through the off season. So there's something going on at linebacker. I don't know if they're changing defenses. Like maybe they're going to play a lot more 3-4. So Noah Spence can be more like a Von Miller role. You know, have Beckwith played like a Von Miller role. That's what Bond played and at JUCO and did excellent. He played that a little bit at Oklahoma, but didn't. Like I said, he got injured, so really have the time. So I like the Bond pick. Let's see. I'm gonna not do that one. So my number 2, and this just might be another way. I'm thinking the Bucs defense might be going. And that's Clinton McDonald. He's already lost his starting position when Chris Baker came in. Then they re-signed Silver, and now we have Tui, Stevie T, Big Stevie.
Right.
And it might not be anything that Clinton McDonald it's like his fault. It's just the way he's built and the way they want to play. Their defense. He's on his last year of his contract. You know, he's had a good run, but he also has problems staying healthy. So if I was Clinton McDonald, I would start reading the writing on the wall, and I think he's gonna I'd have to go through the whole depth chart. I guess Channing Ward's still here, so he might go, but he's more of an N. So defensive tackle. I got Lambert, McCoy, McDonald, Silver, and Big Stevie. Yeah, so Clinton's going to be battling, I think, for like one of those last roster spots, depending on how many they take. So he's definitely lost his starting job, and if he doesn't watch out, if he has a bad camp, there could be the conversation of Clinton McDonald not making the team. So he's my number 2.
Yeah, you know, certainly not a pick that I had thought about coming into this, but I think you're absolutely right. The only saving grace, and I think maybe it's why I didn't think about Clint McDonald, is because every time you hear about Clint McDonald, he's kind of the he's one of the de facto team captains. Like who'd they pick last year? It was Levante and Gerald. If given a third defensive captain, it would have been Clint McDonald is what we hear. And so that might be the thing that could wind up saving him or giving him an edge over other people, kind of all things being equal. That might do it for him. However, as you say, that alone cannot be what keeps somebody on a roster. Otherwise, Vincent Jackson would still be on the roster here at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have to be able to get out and play minutes on the field under the lights. And in order to do that, you've got to be better than the other guys that are behind you on the depth chart. So it could be. And I believe Clint McDonald is also not a new person around the league. I feel like he's been in the league for quite a while. So
he's got 8 years in and he's 30 years old. So all things being equal, like you might want to cheap somebody like Channing Ward, who's like 24.
Yeah.
So like I said, or Devontae Lambert, who's 22. Like I said, if he has a good training camp, he'll probably stick, but they're definitely moving away from him as like the roster seems to be moving away from him. So he could hang on, and honestly, I expect him to make the team, but it's not like last year. It would have been, he doesn't have to play any preseason games or even practice in training camp. As long as he's ready to go week 1, he's on the team. But I don't think it's like that this year.
Yeah, could be, and we'll certainly see. And we'll see up close and personal on Hard Knocks as it comes up later this summer. For my number 2, Ren, I'm not sure how you're going to feel about this one. I'm really not. But this one is really coming off of our pick of running back Jeremy McNichols. And for me, I think the person in our running back stable who might really ought to be looking over his shoulder, perhaps more than anyone else, even perhaps more than people that might be a little bit lower on the depth chart, is Charles Sims.
Good.
Yeah, I really, he's kind of the running back that we seem to have forgotten to talk about in this offseason. Certainly there's all the stuff with Doug Martin, and then there's the Jacquizz Rodgers, because certainly he stepped up and made a big impact last year. And then there's Peyton Barber, who's kind of the undrafted free agent. He's the story from last year, the heartwarming story out of last year. But we seem to have really forgotten Charles Sims, who spent the remainder of last year on IR, the vast majority of the year. But let's not forget, just 2 years ago, he was touted as the second half of the best 1-2 punch in the entire NFL for the running backfield. However, with the addition of Jeremy McNichols, with Jacquizz Rodgers still there, even as much as they say they like Peyton Barber, Charles Sims certainly showed to us when Doug Martin got hurt that he has his limited abilities. Now, he is very good at what he does, but he still is limited in what he's able to do. So I just think he should be on the lookout. I think he should, as you said, I think he might have been put on blast, and he's going to have to really earn his spot. I don't think it's just a given that Charles Sims is in the running back stable for the Buccaneers in 2017.
What about this? I thought about this, and you're right, because we just always kind of skip it. We go, okay, we got Doug Martin possibly, then we have Quiz, and then okay, McNichol. He'd be better than Barber, but you never bring Sims. You just kind of like go from like Quiz to Barber, never talk about Sims. And I think it's because we saw him try to be the number 1 back, and he just wouldn't commit to a hole. He wouldn't commit to a spot and go for it. So this is, my brain churning, and possibly, to be able to keep him on the team, because, he is a playmaker. You get him out in space, we've seen it.
Right.
He can make plays. If he can stay healthy, what about moving Charles Sims to slot receiver?
Well, to do that, he'd have to beat out Adam Humphries, or we'd have 2 slot receivers out there at the same time, which could happen. But then he's got to face the likes in a wide receiving core that includes, even if we just take away the top guys, you now still have Adam Humphries. You still have our guy that we picked this year. Crap, what's his name?
Goodwin.
Yeah, you have Goodwin, but then you also have guys like Josh Huff.
So this way, I'm saying he's the 5th wide receiver, and this would who he'd have to beat out: Dante Dye, Josh Huff, Freddie Martino, Bernard Reedy, Thomas Spearbeck, who I don't know who that is, Darrell Walker, and Jesus Wilson.
It's all possible, and we are still looking for a new returner, aren't we? So, or maybe
I think that's going to get taken care of. I don't think Cutter really cares about returning at all.
Right.
I really don't. Right. I don't think
but we tend to use those deeper wide receivers for those jobs.
That's true. That's true.
We might be looking at that. Remember that situation with what was his name? The running back from a couple years ago.
Mike James?
No, the other guy. who was a returner that kept fumbling the ball, and we got rid of him last year.
Kenny Bell?
No. I forget his name. It's going to come to me later tonight. There are people listening to this right now who are screaming his name. Bobby Rainey. That's who I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah,
that guy. Good pull.
Yeah.
I do that too. I'll listen to podcasts. I'll hear someone misspeak. I'll like I'm listening to it. I hear misspeak. I'm thinking in my head, God, that's terrible. How can you not know that? Then I'll go back and listen to like our podcast,
right.
And I'll hear myself misspeak, and I'll be like, oh no, right. I did it too. So it happens.
In doing it too, how about you do it one? What is your number one pick?
No surprise. It's the hashtag I'm with 19. It's Aguayo.
Yeah.
It's that's gotta be it. I'm even starting to move to the camp that if they're equal, that Folk is still going to get the job because he's proving he can kick over 45 yards. He can make a field goal over 45 yards, and Aguayo hasn't. So, even if neither of them miss, I think right now, I think it's Folks to lose. Honestly, I really do. Just because Aguayo, how the percentage, obviously we saw the percentage dropped off, but even if he comes back to his college form, it would be hard to keep him on if he just can't bring up that 45 past 45 or deeper percentage. So going to be one of the fun things to watch on Hard Knocks. And talking about putting somebody on blast, you brought one of those guys one of these guys by week 1 will be being paid $750,000 not to be on the team.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, one of those guys came out and said, hey, nothing against the other guy, but I've got a family to feed. And he's looking for a job, not just for this year, but for future years. And that's Nick Folk. Now, personally, and this is just my own personal thing, I'd love to see Aguayo make a comeback because I love those kind of stories. I love a guy who came out, had a real tough time, and something clicked and turned the corner, and he was able to do it and parlay it into a good long career. Like, I'd love to see that story come out of here. However, not at the expense of another season of games. And so, I'll stick with the majority, I think, on this one. But man, that's a good pick. That's a real good pick, and a guy who would you say he's earned it? He's put himself in this spot. So, yeah, he's put himself in this spot. For my number one, I think I'm going to get a guy who has also put himself into this spot. And this is a guy who is really ought to be watching out, but we re-signed him. And we don't know really why he got re-signed because, Ren, you and I gave this guy a seat number on the bus out of town. Of course, at this point, you guys know I am talking about Mr. Chris Conti, safety. And I think he absolutely should be he should be worried. He should be looking over his shoulder because even though he has a contract, he is still not necessarily on the team, so to speak. Like Light said, or like Cutter said in his press conference, these guys still have to make the team. So he's going to have to come in, have a great camp. He's going to have a good preseason, and he's going to have to prove why he should take up one of these very precious spots on the roster to stay around town. So Chris Conti, I don't know if he can do it. I really don't, but he better be performing super well. I can't wait to see this particular battle on Hard Knocks.
He's not going anywhere. I don't think so. They're going to keep 4 safeties. They kept 4 safeties last year. So you got Wilcox, Tandy. Obviously, they're going to keep Justin Evans no matter what happens. So Chris Conti has to beat out Isaiah Johnson and Alex Gary, who was a undrafted free agent at App State. Isaiah Johnson, he's been around. He got picked up late last season, and he's been around this offseason. So if they didn't think he was going to make the team or think he had to fight for a spot on the team, he wasn't going to be here. So I think he's fighting for a starting job for sure, but I can't see him being even for all his flaws and how he makes a great play, then a terrible play. He doesn't really seem to be very consistent. I still think he's the 4th best safety on the team at worst. So I think he sticks around.
And you might be right, but let me throw this one thing out there at you. Every year we wind up keeping a handful of undrafted free agents that surprise us. which means they're going to have to come from somewhere. And I don't know what these two guys are that you just kind of named. Actually, I don't even know who they are. I'm sure we'll talk about them on the next episode. But somewhere there's going to be some undrafted free agents that surprise us and take out people who are a little more established on the team. Why not safety? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. It could be there. But to me, and even if he doesn't get kicked off the team, certainly it's the starting job, which, truth be told, he already lost last year. So, but yeah, that makes to me Chris Conte is our number one guy for my money, for what we're looking at. Well, Ren, did you have any honorable mentions before we move on?
I did. I had one running back position, but instead of Sims, I had Rogers, Jaquiz Rogers, simply because Doug will be back probably, as it looks like right now, week 4, and then we don't know how good McNichols is going to be. I think he's going to be pretty good. So, I mean, by week 5, Jaquiz Rogers from week 1 to week 5 could go from starting running back, carrying the load, to being, running back 3, maybe even running back 4, depending on which way the Bucs want to go. Because if he becomes running back 3, they basically have the same 3 type of backs on game day. If Charles Sims sticks around, they might want to make him, keep him for a change of pace back. But this, like I said, it's some Nichols kid. Like, that's what he does. It's like he runs like Doug Martin, catches like Charles Sims. So, he could end up being great for the Bucs. But so who knows? But I just put Jaquiz Rogers in there simply because basically it's almost like having 2 draft choices. Because right now he's number 1, but by week 5 he could be number 3, or may not even dress for game days.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. A couple honorable mentions. We actually have already mentioned a few of them. I mentioned one in the last segment, Silver Siglia, or however you say his last name. Silver. And the only reason why I really say him is just I don't know what all of our depth at that position looks like right now, and exactly how many we're going to keep of each player. But he's a big nasty guy. But we have a couple of other big nasty guys in our draft pick from this year, and then Chris Baker, our free agent signing from this year. So I'll just be interested to see. Remember, we didn't sign him until the last handful of weeks of the season last year. So for some reason, he was out on the street for a good bit of last year. Also, I had Josh Huff on the team. I think he's a guy who should be concerned about some of his stuff. Joe Hawley is another one to me that I think needs to be worried. However, earlier today it did come out that the Bucs had released Ben Gottschalk due to a failed physical from an injury he had last year. So I think that actually.
Oh, is that why they got rid of him?
Yeah. It was due to a failed physical as a result of an injury. I guess he just didn't heal up enough for the Bucs to like that, so they waived him. And then certainly, as you said, Clint McDonald, I think, makes also another really good honorable mention of somebody who certainly should be watching out for his spot on the team. Well, fans, this is where we turn it back to you. We'd like to know how your picks stack up against our picks. You can let us know on Twitter at ThePewterCast or on Facebook.com/ThePewterCast, or shoot us an email. Who do you think should be worried for their job, whether it's a starting job or just their job on the team as a whole? Well, Ren, before we get out of here, why don't we take a look at this week's poll?
It's real bad, okay? I don't like those numbers at all.
Just one poll? Those things aren't scientific.
Yes, they are. All this is science. This is math.
Well, guys, this week we thought we would ask, just here in light of the draft, which draft has been Jason Light's best draft? And we only have 4 choices to choose from, so it's 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017. Before I reveal the winner, Ren, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is kind of an unfair question. I mean, I get it. You're going where you're going with. It'd be kind of a cooler question if he'd been drafted for 10 years, simply because there's no way to judge this draft class. And last year's draft class after 1 year really isn't fair. So, yeah, I think we know what the winner is going to be. The Jameis Winston, Allie, Donovan, Quan draft. What's that? 14.
That would be 2015.
2015, yeah, sorry. So the 2015 draft, I think it's a hand down. I think it's going to be a blowout, and rightfully so. I think it's a fun question. I just think it's not fair to for the last two draft class just yet.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. However, of the respondents, while you were certainly right, 2015 is the winner at 57%. Coming in a relatively close spot is the 2017 draft. And I just would like to add 2016 and 2014 both did get a couple of votes each. So, some people liked the various ones that are in there. Well, that'll do it for this part of the show. Coming up next is our all-new fan interaction segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, Buccaneers fans, I just wanted to take this moment to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting the show. Whether you've taken the time to leave us an iTunes review, which helps new listeners find us, or you've sent us an email, you've tweeted us, or left us a comment on Facebook, we love interacting with you, our listeners. Or perhaps you've gone the extra step in helping the show out financially by leaving a one-time donation at paypal.me/thepewtercast. Every dollar goes back into making this show the best possible Buccaneers podcast out there. So in whatever way you've chosen to support the show, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we're back. This is episode 34, A Badass Football Team. And this is our all-new fan interaction segment. And perhaps surprisingly, Ren, we actually have several pieces of fan interaction to get to. So, I don't know. What do you think about this idea of getting to interact with fans on a little bit longer formed level?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, let's face it. It's the best part of... We can sit here and talk all day, but it's fun to hear what people have to say, what they think about us, what they think about the podcast, what they think about the Bucs. And let's face it, if you're a fan of the podcast, I'm sure it's nice to, hear your email or your tweet or, get a little shout out on the show. That's where I started. I started on the other side, and that's why I started calling, because, I wanted to be like, people know who I was, and this was my opinion, and see, if people liked it or not.
Well, there you go. So let's give a shout out. Zach on Twitter asked us this question. He said, are we worried about cornerback depth? Who do we think will be playing free safety? Will it be Tandyman or the rookie? Thoughts on that there, Ren?
What's Zach's Twitter handle?
That's a good question. It's like his name, and it's really hard to pronounce.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hold on. I'll get it.
Zach Galifianakis?
That's exactly right. Zach Galifianakis.
Nailed it.
It's at Zach _ Galileani?
All right.
Galileani. Zach, please let me know how to say your name, because I'd love to pronounce that correctly, because I'm butchering it right now. But what do you think?
Zach Galileo. I totally forgot the question. I'm sorry.
Are you worried? Let's start with the first one. Are you worried about cornerback depth?
Yeah, I wanted cornerback to go first. Am I worried about it? That's kind of a strong word. I've said a few times that I think that the nickel defense is the new base defense in the NFL by percentage. You're on the field. Teams might start the game out in like a 4-3 base, but it's quickly going to be switched to nickel, and they're probably going to play, especially in the NFC South, somewhere 65% plus, depending on the score of the game. If it's like a shootout, you're probably playing 75% plus. So I think that you need 3 top flight corners. You need 3 starting cornerbacks. Now, is that going to be Ryan Smith? I hope so. But Jude has done a good job of locking down the nickel corner spot. And then when he got suspended, Javian Elliott played a very good spot, came in and played very well as well. So worried is a little bit strong, but I definitely was looking for an upgrade. But I keep hearing that the big buzz name around one Buck is who they're super excited about is Ryan Smith. So that guy might already be on the team, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think my thing is, no, I'm not worried about it this year. Now next year when Brent Grimes' contract is up and let's say he doesn't come back, and who knows what's going to happen. If Ryan Smith steps up, then maybe we won't be worried about it at all. But cornerback is one of those positions, and I've heard this said by several people, and I'm believing it myself. You can never have too many good cornerbacks, and that's a position you're going to give yourself several extra people on the roster, and keep more than just 2 or 3. So certainly I'd like to see some other good people in that. But as far as talking about the depth, yeah, we could use a few more people there. Maybe even could use another good starter. Somebody to really come in and challenge those guys. Challenge even Vernon. Challenge Ryan Smith. Challenge. I'd love to see. I think competition at that spot would be really good. But am I worried about it for this year? No, not really that much. That's just my thought on that. Now, who will be playing free safety? You think it would be Tandy or the rookie? Ren, what do you think?
I think that they're both going to play that. Mike Smith likes to play single high, but he likes to switch it back and forth. Now, I think that with the way they're turning this year, it might be more of a permanent role. Like Conte and Tandy can kind of swing back and forth, but it looks like Evans and Wilcox, J.J. Wilcox, the free agents, are much better suited for the strong safety, sort of in the box safety, cover the tight end, stopping the run safety. So if you're asking me who's going to play free safety between Tandy or Evans, I'm going to go with Tandy. And like I said, the Mike Smith defense, the safeties both play single high, so they kind of play each other's positions, but it sure looks like that it's going to be a battle between Tandy and Conte to start and Wilcox and Evans to start at strong, at least the way I see it right now.
Yeah, I think it could go either way, honestly, on both of those. With Keith Tandy, when he came on and he really shone, he was given really a golden opportunity last year, and he took it and he ran with it. I don't know that I'm fully convinced that Tandy is a long-term starting safety in this league. I think he's great for depth. I think he's great with where he's been. I just don't think that I've seen enough out of him to call him a long-term starting safety. And he might be. I think the jury's just still out on that, so it's hard for me to say to say that he could be it. However, he certainly got hot there at the end of last year, and no one can take that away from him. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. It could, I think, at various points in the season, go back and forth between them, depending on, I think, really who's hot at the moment. I guess is probably the best way to say that.
All right.
So, yeah, that's it on that one.
Was there more to the question?
No, that was it. Yeah, it was just a two-parter. It was three. It was worried about cornerback depth, who'll be playing free safety, Tandy Man, or the rookie. So it kind of looks like a three-parter, but it's really just a two.
It's cool that we got a tweet from a celebrity.
Yeah, Zach Galifianakis.
Zach Galifianakis.
Yes, that guy.
Whatever. The bearded guy from The Hangover.
Yes. Zach, please let me know how to say your last name, man. Totally butchering it. We had another guy at JR Nelson in response to a question that I had about Sims and whether or not he was going to be on the team. Somebody said, my guess is McNichols is going to get his roster spot unless Sims can suddenly learn how to run between the tackles and develop vision. I think that's something we have already covered in pretty good depth, but just wanted to put that out there, Ren, unless there's anything else you'd like to say on that.
No, I think that's that's wise. He's picking up what we're laying down. The more I think about it, the more I think Charles Sims' spot is in danger more than anybody else on the backs we have now. I mean, besides like Tyrell Hansbrough, besides like the four guys that are there before Doug comes back, who's going to get squeezed out? It just might be Sims because he doesn't bring anything that the other guys already don't.
Right. Yep. Could happen. Could happen. All right. Well, moving on from Twitter, Ren, we actually got a couple emails this week, which was very fun.
Awesome.
So our first one comes from David Mays. He says, "Hello. I think Light and staff stole this draft like a thief in the night. They added depth in getting OJ at 19 was huge." He said, "It seems to me now that Barber is the odd running back out. What do you think?" He's talking about Barber being the odd running back out.
You can make a argument for that as well. We got to see how it shakes out. Everyone's just speculating, but I think the way he's doing it, as you know, Barber's kind of seen as the last guy on the depth chart. Mm-hmm. So you bring in McNichols, and if he's better than Barber, then everyone just wherever he slides, everyone slides down one, and he just kind of gets bumped off the edge, which that could happen as well. I mean, for the plays that Charles Sims has made as a Buccaneer compared to the plays that Peyton Barber has made in a Buccaneer, it's not even close. So right. I could follow his thinking.
Yeah, and here's the thing with Peyton Barber. I think probably the most likely scenario is that he does wind up getting cut and sent back to the practice squad unless he gets picked up by another team. But I do think we will at least see him kept around on the practice squad, whereas Charles Sims would be a guy that I think would be more likely to just be cut, and he's either picked up by another team or he's sitting at home. I don't know that we would bring him back for the practice squad.
I don't think we can.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I don't know what the rules on
it's
that
like work. It's like 2 years in the league or less. It got switched up a little bit last year, but I think he's a 4-year player. I don't think. Yeah, he's been in. This will be like his 5th year, so I don't think he can be a practice squad player.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little bit more research. I'd love to do a little bit more research on that and find out what the actual rules are, because I've never thought about the rules of who can and can't be a practice squad player now. But that would be my assumption with Barber, though, is that he might go back to being practice squad if he can, if he's allowed to. I don't know.
Barber is, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'd certainly be interesting. Email continues. He says, "Godwin was another major steal. The weapons now for Winston should be illegal. Getting depth and Evans was for the defense was crucial, and I'm excited to see Devontae Bond perform this season."
I am too.
Yeah,
I'd like to see.
I'd like to see what he could do.
See what he can do. Yeah, that's kind of like the linebacker position. That's kind of the $1 million question. It's like, it's just so weird. It's like you've never seen him there, and Glanton did so well. Then why would you go get a guy who's in? I guess I keep coming back to the value was just too good, and they just wanted to upgrade. So. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Bond play. And what was he? I'm sorry, he said something before that I wanted to comment on.
Getting depth in Evans was crucial for the defense. The weapons for Winston should now be illegal.
Yeah, that was it. It's like we got to think of some kind of hashtag. Right. Have like a picture of all Humphrey, Brait, Jackson, Godwin, I'm sorry, Evans. And then have some kind of like illegal arms or like some hashtag illegal arms or something.
Right. The Second Amendment. These are our Second Amendment.
Yeah, right. The Buccaneers' Second Amendment. Right. Pirates invented the Second Amendment. I don't know. Something like that. That'd be cool. Right. But yeah, he's right. It's, I've been listening to the Locked On Bucs, Locked On NFL Draft. Luke Eachling used to be on it, and he, like as he put it, he had too many irons in the fire, so to speak, so he had to drop out. But luckily enough, Trevor Sikkema from Pewter Report stepped right in, so it was still having a Bucs guy there.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking on the other guy's name, but every time they do a mock draft, and sometimes O.J. Howard would be mocked to him, sometimes Dalvin Cook would be mocked to him, sometimes Corey Davis would be mocked to him, and every time the co-host with Trevor, the co-host would say like he just wants to make out with the Buccaneers offense. Like that's how sexy he thought that was. He's like, is it wrong for me to just want to make out with the Buccaneers offense? Because yeah, everybody's excited, and you hear a lot of fans or a lot of maybe reporters that follow the Bucs that are trying to look for the silver lining, but when everybody in the national media is saying the same thing, like everyone's just like, whoa, like look at those weapons. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. Illegal arms, but they're not arms. I don't know. We'll think of something.
Yeah. Weapons for Winston. They should be illegal. I like it. He closes out saying, formerly David in Oregon, now he's David in Utah. Hashtag seized the draft. I like that. I like that hashtag, seized the draft.
I do too.
All right, one
Clever
more.
and appropriate.
Yeah, there you go. One more email. Mike Brown writes to us. He says, overall, this was an amazing draft. Light continues his reign on the first round through Mike, Jameis, Vernon, and now OJ. While you can't address every need, such as cornerback depth, offensive tackle, pass rush, etc., I'm very happy with the haul that we raked in.
Hashtag. No hashtag?
Nope, no hashtag. Actually, I was just...
No,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, it's like, he knows what he's talking about. It was very short, succinct, but, he put it there. The holes that people thought that they might go to would have been cornerback, which I did early, pass rusher, and tackle. I mean, we'd have to have a conversation about that, but, his worries at tackle aren't unfounded. They're just not going to do anything about it right now. I think this is the make it or lose it or prove it or lose it deal, make it or break it year for Donovan Smith. And Dotson, he's getting up there in age, and his contract's going to expire. Well, not really. They just signed him to a new one, didn't they?
Yeah.
But Cutter had said that Pamphile, which isn't Pamphile anymore, it's Pamphou. I watched a Bucs Insider, and
What?
Scott Smith said they've been saying his name wrong. He's Haitian descent, so it's more of a French, and his name's actually Kevin. And I tweeted out, and Kevin Pamphile, like I'm saying Pamphile, I don't remember how to say it, but he liked it, and I spelt it phonetically. I was like, I guess I've been saying his name wrong all this time as well, because I jumped on Anthony Beck one time when he kept calling him Kevin Pamphile. And I'm like, in God's name, somebody teach him how to say his name. But it was Pamphou is his name, his actual name. And then Casey says, I wonder if it's actually Kevin, if his name is actually Kevin Pamphie. And we've been calling him Kevin Pamphile and Kevin Pamphile. But his name is actually, you pronounce it Pamphie, because he's yeah, exactly. He's Haitian French. And we gave away a picture of him, calling him Kevin Pamphile.
I am dumb. My mouth is open. I'm dumbfounded by this revelation right now.
Yeah, go back and watch it. It was a Miller Lite Bucs Insider. Maybe two. I don't think it was the last one, but not too far back. And I was too. Like, I was so dumbfounded as soon as I finished watching it, I tweeted that out.
Kevin Pamphile. Well, I tell you what, we're not French, and so I might just go ahead and keep calling him Kev. Pamphile, because we know how to say that. We don't say Paris. We say Paris. We can Englishify some of these French names, can't we?
If you want to, Brent.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm trying to look up dots.
Kevin Pamphile can probably beat my butt, so I should probably pronounce it the way he wants me to say it. Actually, that wasn't the end of his email. I was stopping to think about those needs, because I'm not sure that I 100% agree with those as needs. Though certainly they are. I like what you had to say, Ren. They're not unfounded.
Yeah.
It may not be as glaring right now, but they're certainly not unfounded, especially with offensive tackle. I think with Donovan Smith and DeMar Dotson, both of those guys are certainly going to get their time. They're going to get their chance, but a corner has to be turned, particularly for Donovan Smith here sooner rather than later. We can give him the rookie and even the second year passes. But he's getting past that at this point, and we expect to see that turn on here for him real soon. But until then, hashtag I'm with all those guys on the offensive line. Here he closes out the email by saying there are no excuses now. Weapons for Winston has been achieved. It's time to break the postseason drought. Fire the MF and cannons. Sent from my iPhone.
Nice. I've been seeing this, like, from national guys when they're going back to talking about, the illegal weapons for Winston, how like no more excuses.
Yeah.
And it's like, tell me one time Jameis has ever given an excuse, or like Cutter's ever given an excuse about the offense. So I understand where they're going with that. But it doesn't really fit because no one's really said the reason the Bucs are in the playoffs because their offense, or Jameis doesn't have enough weapons, or, Jameis is turning the ball over too much. It's pretty much been the defense until we went 6-2 and the defense woke up. What Jameis's first year, they couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't stop anybody the first 8 games. Now he did turn the ball over a lot, but I'm just saying that this, no more excuses thing is kind of just like a wrong wording. I understand where you're coming from, but no one's ever given an excuse, so it's kind of hard to have no more if you've never done one.
Right.
So,
I tell you, I'm not sure if it may be no one there inside one Buck has been giving excuses, but I think we as fans certainly have been trying to put up some excuses. We've just not drafted well, or the injury bug has hit, or we keep changing over our coach every 2 years, or
it's hot.
It's hot, or whatever. Like all that's got to go by the wayside. It's time to put up or shut up. And I get the sentiment. While the wording may or may not be right, I'm not really sure. You might be a little more further down the line on that than I am. I certainly agree with the sentiment of it, that it's time to put up. It's time to make this happen. There is zero reason. I don't care what the temperature is, because by the way, we're getting an indoor practice field, right? I don't care what the injury bug does, because we should have plenty of depth. We should be conditioned well. And even if one position goes down, we've got other positions that are ready to go. We're not pinning all of this on one or two guys. There is enough. The excuses are done. It's time to get in, and I agree with him. It's time to get into the postseason. It's time not just to be in the postseason, but to do something into the postseason. Not just playing meaningful football in December, but playing real football in January for multiple weeks throughout January, and hopefully playing into February now. And I agree with him. Fire the MF and cannons. Let's do it. Mike Brown, I am with you on that one.
And when you put it that way, I'm with you too.
There you go.
I'm with you too. No, yeah, it's time to make the move, and so, yeah, agree with you 100%.
All right. Well, moving on. Finally, this week, Ren, we got not a tweet, not a Facebook comment, not an email, but an old school kind of snail mail piece of correspondence that showed up in my mailbox earlier this week.
You mean something with postage on it?
Yeah, like it had. It doesn't have a stamp, but it's got a postage. The
machine.
Yeah,
the machine
stamp.
Laid out.
Yeah, one of those. And this particular card is addressed to Mr. Brent Allen, and it comes from One Buccaneer Place, and the name way up at the top of the return says Cutter.
What?
Yeah. If anyone was following Twitter this week, I put a little something out on there, kind of teasing this a little bit. But as you open it up, yeah, it's a card.
So the return address isn't One Buck Place. It's Cutter.
No. The return address it's the typical printed return envelope. It says Tampa Bay Buccaneers, One Buck Place, Tampa, Florida 33607. But above that, handwritten, it's like from the office of Dirk Cutter.
Cool.
So they know where in the building it came from. Should it be returned? And it's a card with the Buccaneers logo on it, really nice embossed. I am absolutely going to frame this, but I open it up and here's what he says. This is dated on 4/27, and it says, Brent, thanks for the notes and the cool trophy, the little mini Lombardi. It says, all of us at One Buck appreciate your support and enthusiasm. Go Bucks, Dirk Cutter. Signed here, handwritten by Coach Cutter. Just kind of a thank you letter that he sent back here to us at the Pewtercast. But guys, really, this is to all the fans, I think, because fans, you guys are the ones who voted. Coach Cutter got a trophy for Storyline of the Year from the Pewtercast Awards show, and got to send it out to him. So very cool that he took the time to sit down and write a little thank you note, sending it back to us. But so yeah, that's pretty cool. What do you think about that, Ren?
Yeah, that's very cool. It's super cool. What are you kidding me? I know you didn't mention this, and I've seen it on Twitter. I saw you put it out on Twitter. I was being a little coy earlier, but it's addressed the day of the first round of the draft. So one of his busiest days in the year, he sat down, probably in his office, to thank you for the trophy that you sent him. The fans voted for it, that you sent him. And the day of the draft, that's what boggles me the most. First, it's super cool that it's handwritten. Right. Then he signed it. To even go to that far, even that done, but do it on the day of the draft. I mean, Jesus Lord, you got stuff to do, son.
Right.
And he thinks, you know what? Everyone, you're just gonna have to wait. Brent Allen from the Pewtercast sent me this trophy, and this is more important than our first round or the rest of the season coming up. I have to get this out before we can move on. And I like how you said it's all of ours. So well, why don't you give it away in a get one of our giveaways?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But I will probably actually frame this because it seems so silly, but it actually means I don't know, it just means so much to me. And it seems weird. Like, I don't think this would be, I don't know who would pay me money for Coach Cutter's autograph, but I actually have his signed autograph, in this note. Like that's super cool. It means a lot. So, Coach Cutter, as I know that you are an avid listener of the Pewtercast and you listen to this every single Tuesday when the show comes out, or Wednesday, as this particular week might be, I want to say thank you.
He doesn't listen. Because if he listened, he would have thanked me as well.
Well, there you go. It's to be fair, Ren. I sent these letters out and I just signed it. Brent Allen, host of the Pewtercast. I think but I put these out before you officially became the co-host. Is how that went out.
That's kind of impossible since I did the. I think I did the.
Well, no, the letters were printed before you accepted the spot, and I just didn't reprint the letters. But I also didn't have you to sign them for me, so it just came from. But anyway, he sent this back. But no, this really comes back to it's not directed towards me as an individual. I think this is really directed towards the show, and for what fans are able to recognize and get that out there, just showing how much I think they appreciate our support is the big thing, and the fact that we do pay attention to what they've got going on out there. So it'd be really cool, like I said, to see a little mini Lombardi trophy sitting on his desk somewhere or on a bookshelf or something in his office come Hard Knocks. When we see that, I'm personally going to be looking for it. So,
yeah, I've been trying to think who has a Twitter handle that we can tweet at that would be cool enough to take a picture.
You know what we should do? We have an inside man. We have two inside people at One Buck. Because first of all, guest of this show, Trevor Sikkema, he is all over that building. And you know who else is there? If Trevor won't do it for us, you know who else is there? If you were listening to the press conference this last week, when they were talking about Stevie Tuikolovatu, and they asked Coach Cutter how to actually pronounce his name, and Coach didn't know, and he just kind of looked over to the side and he said, "Riley, how do you say his name?" And there was a very familiar voice of one 13, 14-year-old Riley Allman that pipes up and you hear him with all the authority, Tuikolovatu, Coach. It's Tuikolovatu. And Coach goes, there you go. So Riley's running around One Buck Place. We've got Trevor also is a friend of ours. Maybe we could ask them to go snap a picture in the office or keep an eye out for him and we could kind of make it like a go spot the mini Lombardi, see if we can find them.
There's another one in the trash.
I believe there's 13 that are out there, I think is the number. If I'm
Evan has 3.
That's okay. We've got to spot them all. Spot the mini Lombardi. Let's try to collect them.
Who else has one? Jameis has one. Did Jameis win one?
He got Player of the Year or MVP of the year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well deserved.
Yeah. Jameis, Mike Evans, everybody who's back. Brent Grimes got one. Keith Tandy got one. Brian Unger got one.
I bet Tandy would do it.
Tandy might. I don't know. It'd be fun. It'd certainly be fun to see.
Unger probably do it. Yeah. I don't know if he has a Twitter account though.
I don't know. Hey, listen, any of our listeners, let's get back to talking to our listeners. If any of you happen to be out there and you spot a Mini Lombardi, take a picture, put it on Twitter. You will automatically be entered in for a giveaway for something really cool that I don't have yet. And no, it's not going to be the note. So, but for you guys out there. So, Ren, I think we have derailed this segment quite a bit.
Hey, it's chat time.
There you go. There you go. Well, Ren, I think that's probably going to wrap up the segment. Do you have any kind of final thoughts as we close out the show today?
Well, first the draft, everyone seems to be really happy with it. And like I don't know if I was talking to you off air or I said at the beginning, when the draft was over, it might have been my least favorite drafts, just because I really had it in my head like it was going to go one way and certain things were going to happen. I didn't understand the linebacker pick right away. I didn't understand why we took a running back so deep and why it was somebody I'd never heard of, since I'd heard about 12 of them. But, one of those things where you sleep on it and as time ticked by, it was almost the perfect draft. A bunch of positions got addressed, and like you've been saying, it's depth for the future. It's been a long time that I've been part of a team that didn't need starters all over the place. So as OJ Howard is being a blue chipper, top 5, top 10 pick, he's going to start, and pretty much everyone else doesn't have to. I think they're all going to contribute if they make the team. But there's no pressure for these guys to actually get out there right away. So it's just nice to have. And then I really like the segment at the end. I like moving it back there because when we start the show, we're a little more buttoned up. Keeping the energy up and everyone getting excited. But I like it near the end where we can, it's kind of button the collar a little bit and kick back, and it feels like we're talking with the fans. Then we start bouncing off each other. Next thing we know, we're asking people to break in $1 place and go to the second floor, go in Jason Light's office and take a picture of the Mini Lombardi that may or may not be there.
And that's exactly what we do here at the Pewtercast. Encourage criminal activity. Well, guys, if you would like to be a part of a future fan interaction segment, which hopefully this will be, what happens just about every show, you can do that by shooting us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com or connect with us on facebook.com/thepewtercast or over at Twitter @thepewtercast. It's one of the more fun aspects of being a part of this Buccaneers community. You can get a hold of me personally at Brent Allen. Ren, where can people get a hold of you if they wanted to talk to just you?
Easiest way is to find me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT.
Yeah, and once again with the show as a whole, you can find us at the Pewtercast. Well, guys, coming up here in just a few weeks, we're going to be having our undrafted free agent show come up. That should be super fun. This Friday kicks off phase 2 of OTAs, where we'll get rookie minicamp, so we'll certainly be following that. So until next time, my fellow Buck fans, go Bucs.